Hi, welcome to Toronto Real Estate Street Talk with Riyaz Rauf. Today in our episode, we'll be focusing more on first-time home buyers and immigrants. So let's take a few questions in the question and answer, and let me try to answer to the best of my ability. And if you may like this, you may share it with new immigrants and first-time home buyers. A perfect question to answer. This question has many categories, and also I would like to break this question into three subgroups. So when you say it's a first-time home buyer, on one side it could be a new immigrant who had just landed and trying to buy a home, or second, it could be a Canadian who have been living here for a long time and want to move in to buy his house after 5 or 6 years. Third, it could be children or parents are trying to help the children out with down payment money, and the children coming into the market as first time home buyers. So if you really look at these, when children want to buy and when the parents are able to give their down payment, that's an easy category out of the other three. But if you look at first time home buyers in terms of immigrants and also people who have lived here for some times and want to buy a house, yes, I understand the interest cost has gone up almost threefold, from an average mortgage of being about 2%, now close to 6%, it's about 5.5%, even if you go for a variable mortgage. And also the fact that there is a stress test which was done at around 5% before, and now it is at 7.5%, which have reduced your purchasing power by almost 20%. In other words, if somebody was looking to buy a house in February, if they were qualified for, let's say, 800,000, the qualification now is about close to 650,000. They have lost their purchasing power due to the stress test. I'm not blaming the stress test. The stress test is there to check whether you are able to sustain this mortgage over a period of time in the event the interest rates go up. So that's a fair question there too. Now, the best way I say is for people to buy a home is when people come to me, they always say, look, I want to own a three bedroom, one car garage home. If you want to look at something like that, even if it's a townhouse in Toronto, you are looking at a minimum of 700,000 for a property like that. So my first question to them would be, if you have been living with your parents now, or if you have been living on rent but close to schools and everything is covered for you and you're quite happy, why don't you look at living over there for another 2 or 3 year period, and let's look at investing in a small property now. Although it is your first home, it could be an investment property that you're going first before your primary home. The reason for that is, let's assume you can buy something today for 500,000, and if you hold on for a minimum of 1,000 days or 3.5 years, I estimate, in my guesstimate, we should be able to sell that for about 30% more than the purchase price, which basically gives you about 150,000 equity to your hand, plus the 10% deposit on a 500,000, which is about 50,000 that you put, would come into you in about 3 years time or 3.5 years time. You would have 200,000 equity money in your hand. And at that stage, you can think of going in for an apartment, a townhouse, or the 3 bedroom townhouse that you are really looking at, because those, although today is 700,000, that too would have increased to $1 million, but still you have the down payment money of 20% with you to own such a home. Because the biggest challenge that the newcomers and the first time home buyers have is the need for that large down payment. I'm not saying that you can keep up with the price of the homes in this market, because it will keep, although we had the exceptional last 6 months, the prices will keep going up. However, the two-step process that I am recommending will definitely allow you to keep ahead of the curve in terms of down payment requirement. So you are basically investing in your equity, leasing out that property, and living where you are living. If you're a student, or if you're working, if you're living with your parents, you'll still continue to live with your parents for the next 3 years. If you're a new immigrant, you'll still continue to live in the place where you are living now, but you know for sure in 3 years you are going to be a homeowner the way you want it. However, what you are doing now is taking the first step, a foot in the door of owning and becoming a homeowner, so that you can leverage your life with the price increases that are to be expected in the future. Good question. Let's look at it this way. If you look at the average price of last year, that is 2021, and the average price of 2022, the price has appreciated by 8.6%. That is a fact. Our sales volumes has dropped from 25,000 to 75,000. That's also a fact. However, the prices have gone up when you look at it on a year-over-year basis. However, it is a fact. When you look at month-over-month, in the last 9 months, we have had a decrease. And presently, the prices in general, if you take as a whole, has come down by about 25%, and I agree. Now, the question is, a property that was valued at around 1 million in February of last year, today, after 1 year, the value would have come down to about 800,000. But the question is, can you afford to buy that house now? The chances are no. The reason for that is because 1 year ago, you were qualified to buy a $1 million home with your income, because your stress test was based on approximately 5% interest rate. However, today, your stress test is being at this point in time around 5.25, which brings your purchasing power down and affordability down. So you might be qualified for around 800,000 or 750,000 at this point in time, which makes it difficult. That's the reason why, if you look at 6 months ago, I was qualified for this. When we were looking around, we did not buy. We waited for better days. Now the better days are there. Still, I can't afford. It's a dilemma that we are going through. I hope I answered this question to the best of my ability too. A very fair question. This question answers the answer that I gave you before. That's the reason that this customer is asking this question, because 6 months ago they were approved for a higher amount, and now their amount has gone down, and the question is whether they can find anything in Toronto for 600,000. The long answer is most likely yes. You can always find a property for the value that you're looking at, but is that the house that you want? If you're a couple with 2 children who are 10 and 14 years, then of course you need three rooms. You can't move into a 2-bedroom or a 1-bedroom or even live in a basement. So whether we can get something for 600,000, probably we can look out for a small townhome, probably in Whitby or Oshawa, or even look at the West End. And further you get, there could be properties, but these properties not necessarily comes in the perfect conditions, and you may have to do some renovations and move in. Case in point, in Pickering, in the center of Pickering, 1 month ago there was a property that came up for sale because they were in trouble, and the owners had some medical complications, and they want to sell, and the property came up to the market, and I recommended people to buy it around 525. However, our offer for 525 did not get accepted. This is a freehold 15-year-old property, a townhouse with 3 bedrooms and 2 full washrooms. However, surprisingly, it got sold to somebody else at $525,000, and now I am told the same property is out there in the market for $699,000 for resale. So it is possible, and please give us a call and we will look out. But it may not be the perfect property that you could have bought 6 months ago, but you are compromising a little bit, and as far as you're holding on for at least for 1,000 days, which is 3.5 years, you are going to build a lot of equity and you are going to be a perfect homeowner by then. It's always, I'm a strong believer when it comes to first time home buyers, go for a 2-step process. It's very difficult to go for your best house, the dream house that you want as a first time home buyer. Oh my God, this is a question that many people ask. We as realtors, we are used to giving so many answers in the past. Things have changed, and we used to say the best time to buy a house would have been 25 years or yesterday. The next best time is today. My answer to you is very simple here. At the moment, we have a situation in the market, high interest rates, low sales, drop in sales, drop in prices. It's also true, people are not selling their properties, and the inventory is still not even in the balanced market. We are still in the seller's market when it comes to inventory, where inventory in the market is less than 3%. So now the question is, when is the best time to buy? I would suggest that you keep an eye, or you speak to your realtor, ideally it's us or whoever your realtor is, keep an eye on not year-on-year appreciation. That would give you a totally wrong impression of the market. Keep looking at month-over-month appreciation. I would suggest, if the moment you have a 2 months where you had positive month-over-month growth, just buy it on the next month. So I am confident in February we are going to have at least $5,000 appreciation over January, and in March we are going to have at least another $5,000 appreciation over March figures. The moment you see that figures, yes, you should be buying, is my opinion. I hope I answered that. Thank you. Yes, I like to answer that, but also with a little bit of saying my apologies to you and also to all the first time home buyers. Because see, how the market works is, a first time home buyer, if he wants to buy a property for more than $1 million, he has to put 20% down payment. Although he can buy anything below $999,000 with 10% down payment. Let's assume an average house which is about $800,000 he wants to buy. So for the first $500,000, he has to put only 5%, which is $25,000. For the next $300,000, to make it $800,000, he has to put 10%. So 30 plus 25, you need a minimum of $55,000 as down payment to put into your owning the first home. Now, many investors, numerous investors find this very easy, because generally when they own a home of about $1 million, every year the prices, even if the prices increase by 5%, they are making a huge equity build up. The moment they have equity, they can take their equity out, they can take a line of credit, they can take other loans through that, and it's very easy for them to come up with, the only thing is they can't buy with 5 or 10%, they need 20% for the investment property, but still for them to get that 100,000 is very easy, because on an average home today there is about 250,000 equity build up in GTA. So anybody, most of them can take equity out of their home, so that funds comes to them automatically. And that's the reason I said, if there are children where there are generational wealth, the parents can easily take the equity out and donate that to their children, where the children have not only 10%, maybe 20% down payment to buy those homes. Not only that, it's even serious about it is because let's assume a parent has enough money and the parent takes $150,000 as equity. With 100,000, with 50,000, the child can buy a 500,000 property. Also, with the balance money, he can also go and commit for a pre-construction, which is coming to hand in another 6 years' time to gradually pay up. They have the money to pay now. So the house they bought for 500,000, they can plan to sell after 5 years when they get the bigger house that they have paid a down payment. So it's kind of much easier for a homeowner to help their son or get into an investment business or investment property. But for the first time home buyer, yes, they have to meet the stress test. They have to qualify with the high interest rate, and also they have to find that money, because when they are new or when they are young, you don't have that kind of salary, because generally to buy a home of if the household income is about 100,000, your mortgageable amount is roughly about 450,000. Speak to your mortgage broker and he'll explain that. Thank you. Awesome question, and thank you for that. Now, if we were to look 1 year ago, that's from not now, a year ago. A year ago, when the interest rates were around, average interest rate of about a variable was about 2%. You can always get a property for about 600,000, and you may carry a 500,000+ mortgage, and your monthly mortgage expense, capital and interest put together would have been about probably $1,500, and your rent would have been about $2,100, and then your property taxes and insurance, all that paid off. There is a good chance you are breaking even. In other words, there is no need for you to bring money from home to pay for your mortgage, and you can rest well. However, now, because when the interest rate variable rate was about 2%, if you are paying 1,500 as mortgage, today the variable rate is about 5%. So you are now paying about $3,500 on that. However, rent also has gone up. The same property today could be leased out for about $2,600 to $2,700. The rent has gone up. However, the problem that we have at the moment is you may have to bring money from home up to about $600 or $700 to sustain this property every month. The reason is your rental income is not enough to pay for your capital contributions. In a mortgage, you have the interest rate, the capital component, and also the property tax and insurance on the property. Now, in this case, you are paying all your expenses. So if you want to do a P&L, you might be profitable. However, because you are paying your capital, you are reducing your capital. However, in today's market, if you were to buy a 500,000 property, I believe you are looking at about $800 to $1,000 out of pocket every month, where you have to bring it to table. On the other hand, let's look at it this way. If you were out of pocket for $1,000 a month and it's costing you $12,000 a year, you have to make a decision whether you can afford it. The reason is, at this point in time, even if you take it as a loss, your loss is $12,000. But at this point in time, you are living on lease, paying $2,500, which you are losing $30,000 a year. Not only that, the moment you own a house, you are building equity. The property you bought for $500,000, you might be able to sell for about $650,000 after another 1,000 days or 3.5 years. Now, if you look at that, your total loss for a month by renting is almost close to $6,000. Whereas it's worth, if you can afford to bring that extra $1,000, get into being a homeowner right away. Pre-construction in GTA, I think it's a good opportunity for many people. Whatever they want to buy, I always have confidence in pre-construction. However, there is a very interesting cautious note that I have to bring in. When we talk of pre-construction, there are two kinds of pre-construction. One is the condo segment. If you were to invest in a condo today, which I have done on 2 condos 6 months ago, I have invested on, or rather our family has invested on. We are getting the keys in 2028. So that gives me at least 6 years of leverage for my equity to grow. And I'm quite happy about those kinds of investment that in pre-construction that I do, because over the next 6 years, there'll be good times, bad times, and reasonable times. Eventually, I'm looking at appreciation when it comes to my hand. On the other hand, you have detached homes that are also sold as pre-construction. And in fact, most clients go direct to the builder and buy this. And that's one of the reasons that we always tell, please speak to us before you make a decision, because we can guide you in this. Most people who go direct to the builder and buy a detached home, they have only about 18 months to 24 months period to receive the key. So in other words, if they are there to sell, or if they are looking for equity build-up, they may not see the equity build-up in that 18 months or 24 months, because it depends on how the market is. If you take a 6-year period, you are going to have a good time, a bad time, and not an average time. So when it comes to pre-construction, I support more in terms of condos than going in for residential. For example, if you take somebody, I have a client now, without mentioning names, he bought on his own from a builder, and he bought about 18 months ago for 1,650,000 and upgraded, and the cost alone to him today is 1.7 million, and he has to close it in a couple of months, and the present market value has come down to about 1.5 million. Now the question is, look at the issues. He has to come up with extra 200,000 apart from the mortgage, because his market value has come down. The bank is giving him only 1.5 million, not 1.7 million. An issue on one side. The issue on the other side is, when he bought, he would have been planning, he would have been living in a small house. He would have thought, you know what, come February 23, I'm going to sell my house for a profit of 500,000, and I'm going to use that money to go into the other house. The market took a turn in the last 9 months. He can't sell that for 500,000 profit. Maximum profit he is going to make there is about 150,000. Now he is having an issue of balancing his books, because he has to get the new house. So this is why I always say, pre-construction, see what is your objective. And I always support going for pre-construction with condos which are over 5 years. Average condo takes 4 years, but I think with all delays, it could go up to 5 years. And generally, if it's a 5 to 6 year period, maturity period where you get the key, it's an awesome one. Second, I would also suggest, this is something that I did in the beginning of my career, where I went and sat with parents and children who are in high school. And when a son or a daughter who is about 17 years, I go to the parents and talk to them and say, you know what, it's a nice time to get some equity out of your bank, and try to put it on a pre-construction, because you may have to pay only about 30,000 a year over the next 4 years, and then you may have to take possession only in the 5th or 6th year. By the time it's 5th or 6th year, your son or daughter has already entered the university and already passed out as a graduate, right? And at that stage, when you get the key, you can lease it out and then sell the property for a good profit. And when the money, because you are going to write it under your daughter's name, and there you can get over certain tax complications, so you are going to retain all the profit, and your daughter or son would use that money to pay off the student loan. The important thing is this: I am a father of 2 children, a son and a daughter. What I understand is this: Canada, we are blessed to be in Canada, a country that has so much of sophisticated universities that's recognized world over. But as immigrants, most of our children complete only the basic degree, and they go out to the market, they start working, and then they start getting married, and they're quite comfortable with their life. But if you were to do this, get into a pre-construction when your children are in high school and before university, when they pass out, you can sell it, pay off the student loan. Now they are entitled to take another student loan to do their master's or PhD. How nice would it be if you are the architect to change the intellectual capacity of your family? You are not looking at children who are with a basic degree, but also going into the master's and PhD, and their earning ability in the market is huge. So this is one of the reasons and advantages I see of pre-construction, getting into the right one at the right time with the right guidance, because there are shortfalls too. Speak to us, we'll be able to guide you. Thank you very much. Good question again. I have always told, especially immigrants, I'll take the first-time home buyers and immigrants, they're almost the same category, but with slight differences, because these days, most immigrants who come in are much more qualified to buy than the people who came in 4 years ago. But there are IT specialists who come in. If you look at the family household income is about 200,000. I mean, this was not the case 5 years ago, because they come with jobs already in their hand, and Canada is bringing in a lot of qualified immigrants. That's awesome. However, it's very important to follow this. Say, for example, if you had owned a home back in wherever you are coming, bring those documents. If you have paid mortgage in those countries, have those documents with you. Right? And also, say for example, if you had a history of last 3 years or 4 years earning histories, banking history, bring those, because when you come in, there are certain banks, I'm not going to details, but call me when you find time, 647-283-1966. There are certain banks that specializes for immigrants, and they would even look at records of previous earnings before you came in. So that might be a great help. In general, the biggest help that we can tell you is, when you come in, don't be tempted to go in for a new car lease or financing. The moment you get a car lease or a financing, even if you are paying $300 a month or $500 a month, that brings your borrowable mortgage amount drastically. And that will come to bite you at the time in a 2 years or 3 years time when you want to buy a house. So that's one thing that we would suggest that you don't do into. The second one is maintain your credit score like nothing. Right? Even if it's a bill, if it's a phone bill from one of the providers, if you are changing from one provider to the other provider and there's a dispute over $15, I would suggest pay the dispute first and then argue about it, fight about it. You don't want them to keep on debiting your account 3 or 4 times and then say they did not collect, and that's an NFS, and that may show up in the credit report. So first pay and then argue about it is my advice when it matters to small things. Look after them as your eyes, and that's a credit score. The third thing, speak to a realtor, ideally speak to us, and ask for a blueprint. How do you think I can become a homeowner in Canada, and how soon? Based on your situation, we may say you can do it in 3 months, or we may say, sorry, you may need about 5 years to do it. But have a blueprint in your pocket that will ensure that you have a plan. There is a savings plan, there's a strategy to get about, and with the blueprint, you're confident that you can become a homeowner. It's extremely important to understand that I am giving my opinions here as a realtor and an investor, serving myself, my family, and my friends. It's also important to understand, while talking about real estate, obviously we will be talking about legal side, finances, and taxes. However, I am not an expert on those, and I urge you to seek expert advice when it comes to those 3 matters. Appreciate you sending all these questions to me, and keep sending them, and I will take it up again in a month's time when I have the opportunity of doing another recording. At the meantime, in my discussions, I would have given you some opinions on taxes, about law, and also about mortgage. But I'm only a realtor, and I'm limited to my real estate knowledge, and I always advise you to seek professional help. At the meantime, if you are in the market to buy or sell or invest, please give me a call. As always, I'm a strong believer in buying and accumulating wealth and not necessarily selling. However, if you have to sell, still call us, me or my son Rushdie, 647-283-1966, a household name that you can trust. Thank you.